Hi, I'm Jimmy Sanchez. I'm the achievement coach for TRIO Student Support Services at C&M. C&M is lucky to have two TRIO programs, one at main campus and one at Montoya campus, where we're serving right around 400 students. Okay, so I've been asked by Martha and the team to talk about first-gen students. And it's ironic because I never shut up talking about first-gen students. I am a first-gen student. I was a 45-year-old freshman. I know my audience because I've been hanging out with you guys for months. And I know that many of you are also first-generation students. So it's kind of going to be a preaching to the choir thing. But we just want to go ahead and review a quick review of what first gen means and what it is and how we're serving them and whether that's changed over the years. First, I need to figure out how to click and move my dang screen. Okay, there we go. I don't know how I did that, so this could be scary. Okay, guys. So the definition of a first generation student is a student who represents the first person in their family to attend college. In our breakout room recently, we had a student who was first gen, one of our members of this group, who recognized that her aunties, uncles, and stuff had college degrees. But it only counts for our demographic and our student population in the home that you grew up in. Did either parent have a bachelor's degree or higher? Okay, and on this, let's see, good, here we go. Now we're on a roll, you guys. This is the breakdown of our demographic of first generation students. Oddly, when we first put together our first draft of this, we found data from 2015 from NASPA and Pew that did not include Indigenous American Indian in the graphic. So we had to go back to the drawing board and find one. And you can see here on the right on this graph that the representation is 1%. 1%. I did some digging and I looked at C&M. And I wanted to know, well, what is our number at C&M of how many Indigenous American Indian students are we serving? And the population, my goodness, I had this thing up earlier. I don't know if I dare try to bring it up again. No, I'm not going to be able to get to it. Yeah, I've got stuff buried under 18 screens, so bear with me. In 2007, our number was around 9.3% American Indian students at C&M, and that has gone down every year, and now we're sitting at about 7%. 7% of our students at C&M are American Indian or Indigenous students. The median household income for a first-generation college student is about $41,000. In comparison, of course, to continuing students, for this continuing generation students means that your parent has a college degree, bachelor's or higher. 28% of our first-generation students are 30 or older, compared to 16%. That's significant when we're looking at the numbers of non-traditional students who are starting school at a later age. I, of course, started at 45 years old, first-generation student. One-third of our students, and these numbers have not changed drastically or dramatically within the last 15 years. I looked at data from 15 years ago and then gathered the latest data from NASPA, which is, graciously let me hijack or plagiarize their graphs for this presentation. I did cite them at the end, so you guys will all be happy, okay? Our first generation students are 1/3 of our students. 1 in 3 students is first generation. We're seeing an uptick in those numbers now. I expect that maybe this next round of NASPA, Pew, and the federal government releasing numbers, that we're going to be closer to 2 and 5. Okay? Parents of first generation students tend to come from low income socioeconomic backgrounds. First gen students are more likely to be financially dependent, minorities, and rely on financial aid. Significantly in this, our first generation students are working. Okay, they're working, and they're working full-time jobs and trying to do full-time academics or at least part-time academics. This is a challenge, and we all know this. 71% of our students starting at a 4-year campus were not first gen or lower income, and they earned a bachelor's degree in 6 years. These numbers, 71% of students that had the support in their family system built in, the bachelor's degree at home, mom and dad, were successful within 6 years. You compare this to 51% of first-gen students and 32% of first-gen students that are also low income. This has a dramatic effect on the statistics as we look at this. The upper left graph, if we look at this, this is my continuing generation students. Okay, these guys are getting their associate degrees, they're getting their bachelor degrees, and their dropout rate is amazingly low. Significantly, 9.7 are still going. This is after 6 years, they're still working on that bachelor's degree. For my low income, not first gen, just below it, we got 47%, 6% are getting their associate degrees, 12% are still enrolled and going for it, and 32% have dropped out. Okay? That is just the low income effect on continuing generation students who live in households. The dropout rate is significantly higher. When we look at our first generation students that are not low income, half of them are getting a bachelor's degree within the 6-year period. Significantly, 13.3% are still enrolled and still going for it, and 9% of those have an associate's or certificates to go with it. The scary number is, and we know this because I'm preaching to the choir here. I know you guys know your first gen, okay? We're all working with them. That usually first gen comes along with low income. Okay, when the median household income for first gen students from our first or second slide is $41,000, we know that these students are low income and first generation. Bachelor's degree in a 6-year period is only 31%. Okay, the dropout rate is just scary. I hate to even try and do the number out loud, but it's over 40%. But look at this, 18% are still going for it and trying. And they're going to get there, okay? With our support and our help, they're going to get there. You know, we have to believe that what we're doing is going to matter. It is impossible for a student that is working a full-time job and only doing 2 classes per term to pull it off in 6 years. We know this, especially when we're starting in remedial classes, which we know is there. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing at TRIO, what we're doing in our other programs that are high impact best practices in serving this student population. This is the meat of the meeting, you guys. And I know that everybody has their ideas on what works. So I just put this together as kind of a general guide for us. We've got great people out there that have wonderful, wonderful practices that they're doing, that we have evidence that they're working. Number one, your first gen student doesn't know what they don't know. How many of us have sat down to talk with our first gen students and said, okay, what's the status of your FAFSA? And the student looks at you and it's like a what? They got no clue. Or you use other words like syllabus, and this, you're going to get a blank stare. We know this. So know that they don't know what they don't know, and that we can teach them all along these levels. We can show them what is important. One of the number one things that I have found across all studies going all the way back into the 90s is that relationships with faculty is important. We need to get our first-gen students connected to their professors, to the office hours, to get them in that comfort zone of walking up and introducing themselves. I remember we used to do practice introductions in the TRIO office with our students. Okay, walk up, introduce yourself, and shake hands. Okay, not too long shaking hands, smile, make eye contact, you know, all of the basic things that we take for granted. These first-gen students are having to learn, and they're appreciating us taking the time to do it. Our student-faculty relationships improve the odds of graduation. I don't know what it is about our first-gen students, but I do know this, that is the beginning of social belonging to this demographic on your campuses. Knowing a professor, being able to go up to the professor and say, "Hi, Dr. Smith, good to see you." Okay, that's a big deal. This is the beginning of social belonging. Social belonging is highly, highly important for this demographic of students. They're already coming in with a mindset that's telling them, nobody in my family's ever gone to college. I don't belong in college. It's scary. I don't got no friends here, and I'm isolated. It's our job to make sure that that feeling does not persist. Now, it is important that we identify these students as early as we can, because we will lose them as soon as they get that first failed test or they fail a class. They will go right back to the mindset of, see, I didn't belong in the first place. And this is just evidence of it. We got to be there to step in and go, oh no, understand this is why Pell Grant, another thing that they have no clue about, this is why Pell Grant gives you 150% of the hours that you need, because we know that we're going to struggle and fail classes. Academic support is one thing, you guys. The community resources and family support are also crucial. Understand that with many of our students, we looked at the statistic earlier, that a huge chunk of them are over 30 years old and don't have a family support system. What they have at home is 2 kids. So we got to be that community resource and that support. We got to be able to connect them to our local food banks, our LIHEAP, rent help, and all of the stuff that we can find. Tasha and I are going through, and every month we're updating our list, making sure that our numbers are working, making sure that our numbers to Agora and the crisis line are being answered, which she's probably going to bring up in a little bit. Now, I mentioned this earlier. We need to identify and offer support for first-generation students as early as possible. Most first-generation students are only self-reporting when they end up in a TRIO program or something. It's rare that you'll come across a conversation where students are talking and going, oh, does your in your family to go to college? Well, me too. That's where it's important that we offer these opportunities for students to build community, to build networks with each other, our first generation students. Be available to our learners in a timely manner. Answer the email. Don't let it sit there for 48 hours. I know this is impossible for some of us to do. It's one of my pet peeves. It's one of the reasons I became an achievement coach and advisor to this demographic of student, because in my experience, by Tuesday at 1, when my appointment was set, I'd already been dropped from the class. When all I had to do was get a simple answer of, how can I fix this? We got to be available in a timely manner to our students, not just our first gen students, you guys. And we need to do that for each other too. Come on, let's stop not looking at our emails. This is a very simple thing. Look at your email, send back a thing. If you don't have the answer, send back the thing that says, hey, let me get back to you. I got to look this stuff up. Let's stop leaving each other hanging. Our first gen students, they need scholarship money, you guys. Let's find every scholarship we can for them. Let's help them fill it out, because they're not going to have a clue how to fill it out. And then they're going to help others fill theirs out. We're going to teach our first gen students how to teach the rest of the people in their family how to be successful in college. This is where communities change. This is building community and changing lives, the C&M motto. Okay? It's our job. Now, one of the most amazing things that we do at TRIO that I've loved, that all TRIO programs are doing, is we're celebrating our students' successes. If our students manage to pull a 3.5 or higher, we actually throw a big old party. We get certificates. We give out little swag bags of stuff. It's a big deal. Don't be afraid to tell these guys that you're proud of them. It's a big deal. Okay, so what are we doing at TRIO, and how is TRIO different than anything? I'm preaching to the choir. Okay? You guys know what TRIO is. We're a federally funded grant program, and we serve first generation or low income or documented disabilities. Any one of those or the combination of three, that is our demographic that we serve. Okay? I love my job. I get paid to help students succeed. Wow, what an amazing concept. This is why I changed my major after I got my first degree. Okay, so I could come back and do this. This is important work. This is going to change our communities. Now, remember the hidden curriculum. Our students don't know what they don't know. We mentioned this earlier. The words FAFSA, syllabus, office hours, all of these kinds of things. Students aren't really hip to that. But most importantly, they aren't attuned to financial aid. Okay? We got to help these guys figure it out. We got to offer them information on scholarships that are coming up. You may find yourself in a position where you're going to need help filling out a FAFSA with a student. And it's amazing that the Fed student loan site has become so much more workable. It's doable now, and the change in the last 7 years has been huge. I mean, it's simpler to get your information in there. We got to let our students know the difference between a grant, a scholarship, a loan.
The deadline for face-to-face.
All of that information.
Deadline is for.
Okay. Hidden curriculum, you guys. Where's the cheapest place on campus to get a cup of coffee? This is good to know. Who's got the coolest program to join? You guys know, my UNM people, you guys, you got it going on. El Centro, Mocha, all these groups and clubs, and friggin' even the Greek societies at UNM are just above and beyond helpful and gracious and open to hosting first-gen students. Get your students connected. The sense of social belonging is important. The mindset, social belonging and inclusion. Include these students in everything you can, and they will be successful. And by they, I mean we. First generation, low income, 45-year-old freshman, pulled off a master's degree and 2 classes away from finishing up the whole dissertation thing. Come on, you guys, it's doable. But I got support early on. I found Trio. Help your students find Trio. If you take away anything from this and you're not working at Trio, have your first-gen student join Trio. We're everywhere, okay? And I mean everywhere across America. Okay, so that's kind of my throw at this stuff. I got one more staggering graphic to present to you guys. And 90% of low-income first-gen don't graduate within 6 years. You know why? Because they're working. They're at work. You can't do a full-time schedule successfully as a student while you're working. But remember the graphic before? 27% of them are still persisting. I personally don't care if it took you 8 years to get your bachelor's degree. I'm okay with that. I know that's going to make a difference for you. But when it comes to the number of calculations and everything, for some reason, this is seen as a failure. And we're not going to fund the students through it. You know, you're going to run out of Pell Grant hours. Told you I had references. Look, this was a task. Everything that I looked up and all the stuff, I had to get it from NASPA, Pew, or from a reputable site, such as, you know, the Department of Education.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. We really appreciate this wealth of information and your suggestions for folks at any institution across the U.S. And then also that referencing of community, how much community and family plays a role for first-gen students as well.
That's social belonging.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Jimmy? Questions or comments that we want to share?
I have a comment for Jimmy. Hi, Jimmy. My name's Bianca. I was in Upward Bound when I was in high school, which is a trio program. Yeah. And so I have to say they're amazing, and they helped me so much transition to college. So I wasn't lost. And so I just want to thank you, because I know you're definitely helping our students here on campus.
Upward Bound make you believe you could do it?
Yes. No, it really gave me hope. And so
yeah,
I definitely believe in Trio for sure.
No.
Trio programs are just amazing. The people that work at Trio have this attitude that, yeah, we can help you. What's going on? We can help. And it could be anything. We had a student up here at Montoya campus. We had a student living in the park. One of my engineering students, our director, I'd let my director know, hey, Magda, we got a student living in the park. Within a week, this guy had a job and a place to stay because Magda knows everybody in the community. That's TRIO.
Great. And I see Brandy has a question, but she might be on the phone, so we can also wait for that. That's okay, Brandy. We had one, are you ready?
I can go, yes.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much for this presentation. I'm just curious, has CNM applied to become a NASPA First Gen Forward institution? Do you all have that designation?
I don't believe we do, but I believe that in you just saying those words in this meeting, that there's someone taking a note and we're going to be looking into it immediately. Okay. NASPA was my first conference that I went to as a student at TRIO, and it is why I'm in my career now. NASPA is awesome. And that's why all of this stuff, all of my graphics and everything is backed up by NASPA. That is the most amazing group of people when it comes to helping first gen, well, all students, but particularly our first gen.
Yeah, I serve as one of the co-liaisons for UNM's NASPA First Gen designation. So I can send you the link just to think about. And, you know, they have a full NASPA First Gen conference, which is, I think that there's great work in New Mexico. And I think we should definitely be pumping out the research about first gen support at HSI, community colleges and stuff. So I'll send you all of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And for anybody that wants to connect with me outside of this, I just threw my email address into our chat. Remember how I harped over and over on answer your emails and stuff? You can test me on this, you guys. As soon as I get off the freeway, within 3 minutes, your email is going to get an answer. Okay? If I don't answer it in 3 minutes, it means I'm on the freeway.
Thank you for sharing that, Brandy, because I was just going to ask, I remember our UNM hub member, Shannon, had shared with us that UNM recently was designated that position. So it's great to hear you have that extra designation and support. Are there any other questions or comments for Jimi?
I'm a little bit intrigued if there's any way I know the problem with low income students is they're working while trying to get, their degree. I mean, the problem is, especially with first generation, because their parents expect that, as when I had them, first generation students at the high school level where their parents hadn't graduated from high school, they quite regularly could not figure out why their child, who was having to work right after school every evening, to help contribute to their household by the time they were in about 9th grade, was not thriving as well. And we'd tell them they needed homework. And the problem is they're being given the message from home that, well, school is only like 25 hours a week, so you must have time to fit in work. And when you're scheduled at CNM or UNM, they take a look and go, well, there's only like 15 hours of classes, so that's bound to be time for you to be able to have a 40-hour job.
Exactly.
So that's what's killing them, is like they're under the perception that it can be juggled. And I think if we had agencies like Workforce Connections and all of these other places that are labor oriented, that explain to students that when they have 15 credit hours, that does not mean 15 hours sliced out of your week. That's more like 30 hours sliced out of your week for your outside of class work. And they don't have that calculation. Yeah, it's heartbreaking because they're struggling. And then you're meeting with them and they're saying, hey, I got to run because I got work. I'm working every evening from 4 to midnight or something. And they're assuming that it's possible, right? Somebody has given them the message that it's really possible to be a full-time student and a full-time employee, and somehow you can juggle it. And it just really stretches credulity. If we had more agencies that would basically reimburse a student for attending school, so that the 15 hours that they're in classes, they're being reimbursed through, you know, the labor agencies of one kind or another. Any kind of programs would really, you know, the 50% of the students that are not persisting, that you were showing on those graphs, the difference between high income and low income it's just devastating. Is the number, you know, that cutting in half the amount who finish. And also, if you notice, there was a really large slice of the ones who stopped out right away because it's just too much conflict with their work. That, you know, they get to finals and they can't get off enough time, or they're trying to study while they're working at the counter at all such, you know, they're studying little cards, you know. So it's just a difficult thing. And we have this culture that has kind of told students that it's possible when it really isn't.
Thank you, Jim. And actually, that's another area of my work at United Way is the Education Friendly Workplace Initiative. So we're also looking at how we can, you know, help local employers better support their employees in accessing education. Because you're right, like it is a holistic model of making sure that those working adults have support.
It truly is. One of the statistics I didn't share with you guys was 30% of our first gen students have dependents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a huge issue for both time and finances when you calculate that into school. We did have one last question from Brittany in the chat. And this can be opened up to the group as a whole. Do you know of any specific sites or resources for financial aid geared toward first-gen students?
I do know that a first-gen student, first-gen low-income or documented disability student could be eligible for a TRIO supplemental grant that is offered on if the student meets the criteria. Specific grants and scholarship for first-gen students, I honestly, and I've been doing this forever, I can't recall ever seeing something that was for first-gen specific. Yeah. And why not? This doesn't make any sense to me now that you asked that.
Well, if folks, you know, are finding resources that you want to share with this group, please let me know. You're always welcome to reach out via email, and I can share it out as part of our resources or on our Padlet page, because this is a space to be able to share. We also had another question, Jimmy, and this will be our last one before we give time to Tasha for the case study. Have there been talks around supporting undocumented students so that they're able to be part of TRIO, for example?
We at TRIO talk about it often. We work with the Dream Team until there is effectively a change in the way the federal government looks at undocumented. I see nothing happening with it. I don't see a forward move on it. I know that we are specific in our criteria that you must be permanent resident or a citizen, or we cannot bring you into TRIO.
Okay, thank you for sharing that information. But you do have a Dream Team that are there to support undocumented students at CNM?
Yes, yeah. We do work specifically with undocumented students, immigrants, migrants. We're doing the best we can. But as TRIO stands, we cannot due to the laws.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.